Hi, good evening. My name is Jay Rothman. I am the host of the show. Welcome to Real Men, Real Talk, Live. Welcome back to the studio. Again, my name is Jay. I'm the host of the show. I'm excited to introduce my co-host this evening. We have Mr. Evis Love Heath, the man of the land from down under. He calls Australia home. Welcome back, Evis Love.
Another week, my brothers. Halfway through the year again. Looking forward to tonight's show.
All right. We have Josh Richer. LA is where he resides today. Welcome back, Josh Richer.
Great to see you guys. Looking forward to sharing time again.
And of course, we have Jeff Fasano, and Nashville, Tennessee is where he calls home. Welcome back, Jeff Fasano.
Thank you, Mr. Rothman. And I'm setting the intention that the show will be as hot as it is hot here in Nashville. They didn't flow.
Wow.
Is
No way.
it warm and sticky?
It is warm and sticky. It's hot and sticky here.
Wow. All right. Well, it's a good way to detox some pores. Open up them pores and let it all come out. Get rid of the toxins and the poison that no longer serve you and I. In any event, as we take a moment here to welcome our viewers, if you're joining us live this evening, coming in from Facebook Live, YouTube Live, or LinkedIn Live, we love you. Welcome back to Real Men, Real Talk Live. If you pick us up on either any of your podcast stations, channels, and or Roku TV and Amazon Fire TV on replay, welcome back to the show. If you should hear something that you like or love, we do invite you to tap your love button on your monitor and light us up. And if you have any questions or comments for us, feel free to drop them down in the comment section, and we'll do our best to acknowledge as many questions and comments as we can. Tonight is episode number 104. And tonight's episode is all about what are your core values? Can you identify your core values? And do you respect them on a daily basis? But before we get there, we got to figure out what are our core values? What do core values mean? And we're going to do a deep dive tonight into the core values and how they can either impact your life as a blessing or impact your life as a burden. But while we're going to jump into it in a moment here, I do want to invite our viewers and listeners to drop down in the comments, what would you say are your top 5 core values that are your beacon of light or guiding light for your life to have a life of just integrity, a life of just peace and joy and calm and stillness? Is there even such a thing in 2022? Well, Evis Love, since you're sitting on the top shelf one more time, I'm going to invite you to kick us off and warm us up and get us going on tonight's episode 104. What are your core values?
Yeah, let's dive in, brothers. As always, here in the land down under, brothers and sisters, thanks for having me, and always supporting Real Men Real Talk Live. We're 104 shows deep, coming with another important topic, brothers and sisters, and why it's so important. I feel like Jay said, particularly here in the collective after the last couple of years. I did a video this morning. I opened up that many people I feel may have compromised some of the values within their life. I think some things are starting to come to light where certain people we may have been calling celebrities, people we may have admired, people up in so-called roles within society, may have sold their soul a little bit and compromised integrity within their life for $1 to receive a collar. Now, if you can tell me that's one of your values of freedom being fulfilled, I'd be very surprised you're one of those people that accept money in the sake of a form of value to compromise integrity within your life. Now, where am I going with this? Because it's so important with these things that we call our values within our lives to be aligned to those specific ways that we live through our day, ways that we actually relate with other people, places, and things, and how we're living a life full of authenticity, full of integrity, like I'm talking about here. Now, whether you know it or not, whether you're conscious and aware, these values have been shaped, formed, conformed within your life from the very first time that you were able to stand on your feet, brothers and sisters, through our experiences, through social norms, through politics, and where I want to deep dive tonight, through cultural backgrounds. Values have been shaped consciously or unconsciously. These values allow us to make crucial decisions within our lives. They allow us to give opinions within our lives. They even allow us to face some of those challenges within our lives that we may not be able to face without the help of others. Now, where I went to this morning's videos before I hand it over to the brothers is that what's happened is that we've got to go back to redefine some of these values in our life. And for some of those people that may not even know, define what a value is, to really align back to our inner wisdom, to our own values that are able to make our own decisions based on our soul plan, not someone else's rules. So, man, this is going to be deep tonight. And like I said, I'm going to hand it over to the brothers now, and maybe Jeff or Josh, man, you might want to start, defining what a value is. And then I want to talk a little bit deeper of why it was so important in the ancient world with values.
Can't wait to hear that, Ev. I seriously, you guys are connected to your past, and your culture is so connected to the earth and everything. I can't wait to hear. So excited for that. What do you got, Jeff?
Core values, because I think they're called core values because they're in our core, in the core of who we are. They are. I really truly feel in a knowingness that we come into this lifetime already with these core values, and I think one of the core values is love. Is just love, a value of love, loving everything, loving life. Love is a core value. I really feel, and we come in with that. And then we come in with a whole bunch of other core values that are how we relate to others, how we relate in relationships, how we relate to someone else. And those are our core values, caring for one another. But those core values along the way become skewed based upon what we were modeled by mom and dad, based upon what we're taught and conditioned and what we learn. And I feel we're in a time where a lot of those core values that we have are skewed right now in many people. And it's one of the reasons why we're doing this show tonight. And in our pre-production meeting, Ev brought up something with something he was doing with kids. And he asked the question, what your values? And the kids didn't even know what that meant. That's what spurred this. And I really feel that our core values are how we relate to people, how we care about people, our integrity, the impeccability of our word, the consistency we have within our lives, and being true to all of that, being just nice and kind are core values. And I really feel that a lot of that has become skewed in this world. And I see it on so many levels.
Jeff, you just hit on a couple of points that I'm just kind of shaking my head. I haven't heard it before. And it's great. It's beautiful. But I heard you say one thing that really stands out is you said that you believe that we're actually born with the values already set in place, which to me, I've never thought of it that way. And my understanding is that, you know, we're born into a family, and then that's the role of our caretakers, if we have a mom and a dad, or whoever is raising us, is to teach us right from wrong. Now, is right from wrong part of the core values, or is right from wrong our belief systems, and or our belief systems the same thing as core values, or the core values come first or the belief systems come first? These are just basic questions that I'm just throwing out there, so that we can really go deep tonight.
Yeah, it's we are modeled things as we move along, but if you look at a baby is full of love, full of excitement. There's so much love in a baby, and then as you know, wherever mom and dad are, they begin to model things that shift and change that core value of love. I think the basis of core values is love.
You know, it's interesting, Jeff. When I went down a rabbit hole during our production meeting and kind of did some searches online just to see what the internet, what some of the top articles would say in the first page of what are our core values, and not one of them listed love as a core value.
There you go. There you go.
What is that about?
That's why we're in the mess we're in, brothers. That's why we're in the mess we're in.
Yeah.
Now, the ones that let's say the ones that kept popping up for me was humility, compassion, honesty, kindness, no love, but kindness, integrity, selflessness, which is very confusing for many people, determination, and generosity. Those are some, but there are more. There certainly are more. That was just the one that I pulled because it had the most that I resonated with. But don't you find that interesting, that love? I didn't see love pop up in the first 3 or 4 or 5 clicks that I did. What is that?
That's crazy.
What does that mean to you, Josh, Richard? What are we missing here?
we're apparently lost, and we weren't taught very well. And that's what I feel like my journey as an adult has been, is unlearning and going back to that love that the child has, like Jeff talked about. It's that wonder for life and that joy in being with a friend and just playing and doing, it's, man, children got it figured out. And I feel like I've just been unlearning. And Jeff, we had a brief time before the show. We have a pre-show, and Jeff, you brought up a very good point. And I do want to say this because I think we give our folks maybe a bad rap on the show because we're talking about past traumas and things we're wanting to heal. But I was taught some beautiful things from my parents. Jeff, you brought this up, and I was taught, be kind to everybody because you don't know who they are. You know, don't burn your bridges. And show heart and show kindness. But then I was also modeled some other things that, kindness is a core value sometimes means protecting others and saying white lies. So it gets, we get construed, or we get, sort of misinformation. But yeah, I feel like my adult life, I've been unlearning what the world taught me and coming back to love of self and honoring of self and connection and making time for that connection. I got lost in determination. That's one of my core values. But as a man, I took that as the grind, and that the grind was important. And I can tell you, I without this being an elaborate statement, I missed my 30s. I worked my entire 30s and missed friends, birthdays, weddings, the stuff that means a lot. And that's because I had a core value of determination that I felt meant the grind. So I learned wrong from the world, and I'm trying to right those wrongs in my 40s.
How do you unlearn? How do you, Josh? You mentioned that you're working on unlearning. How do you unwind? You know, the fishing line was cast out 200 yards. How do you let it back out and let it go? And then
sometimes you just got to cut the string and start over.
Cut the string. Is that the same thing like cutting the cord?
Sometimes you realize you're all tangled up in a water hole that you don't even want to be in, and you just got to cut the string and move the boat and come back to love. That has been honestly my journey for the last 2 years, is coming back to love. So Jeff, that was beautiful. That was beautiful.
Yeah,
take away from tonight.
I mean, if we were to each here list 5 of our core values, love, compassion, caring about others, integrity, impeccability of our word. We can keep on, and if we think about it, caring about others, caring, compassion, integrity, those are all offshoots of love. If we come from a basis core value of love, then integrity is probably going to be there. Then responsibility is probably going to be there. Then compassion is probably going to be there. If we're coming from a core value of love, and that's why I start off with, because it's in our core. It's not out here. It's in our core. That is, as Ev said in our production meeting, a knowing. It's not here.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Our core values are here, not here. They're in our heart. And we don't do our core values, we be our core values.
Yep.
Wow.
That's
can you say that one more time? I know you like to repeat yourself, but repeat yourself right here, right now.
We don't do our core values. We don't do our core values. We be our core values. It's who we are. And when we say one of my core values is integrity, one of my core values is compassion, I am in integrity. I am compassionate. I am being in integrity. I am being compassionate.
So let me ask you this then, Jeff. How do we define ourselves? Do we define ourselves as saying, "Oh man, you're making progress when you got trolls showing up every week. We just have to be patient and take them out one more time." Where I was going with that was, Jeff, and is really, do our values define who we are, or do we define what our values are?
I think Eva should answer that question.
Your values should define who you are if you're aligned to them, behave and action them. I'll say that again. Your values should define who you are if you align to them and you behave and action them and commit to them. See, many people we're talking about, we have these core values. We know it. It may be as simple as something like, one of my core, Josh, you were just talking about one of my core values was family, but I worked my ass off to the core and I didn't spend time with family. So that was not aligned to a core value back then. So we've got to really ask ourselves, do this self-auditory about whether our actions are aligning to some of these values within our lives after we've listed these values.
Yep.
Now, what my brothers and
And-
sisters to understand as well, before you jump in there, brothers, is that these values don't have to just stay the same. You have core values, but values can be very fluid. They can actually evolve as you evolve. Like as I go into, when I talk about the ancient ways, values would obviously evolve as we grew older in rites of passage.
I love that, Ev, man. That's so freaking powerful right there. Values should define who you are if you are aligned. So
With
I'm
your-
gonna
yeah.
I'm gonna expand upon that for how I'm interpreting what you just shared there, Ev, which is brilliant. Is that if you're waking up and going through your day-to-day life and you are in conflict with yourself, then you are not in alignment with your core values. If you are in conflict around any of how you feel about yourself, the choices that you're making, how you treat yourself, how you treat others, and if there's any inner conflict around that, then I see that as a beautiful opportunity to kind of go in deep for yourself and really assess and go, all right. And here's the other thing about it is how many of what we are living in, which is we may call our core values, how many of them are even ours? Going back to, are they really ours? Or are they the greatest inheritance that we've received from our ancestors that can go back a century or more? And is that aligned with your soul, with your core, as you described in your opening, Jeff, tonight? So I think this is a great topic because it really gives us all an opportunity as we continue to navigate in this lifetime in 2022 and beyond to ask yourself at any given time, once you identify what you perceive as your core values are you at peace with them? Are you in alignment with them? Or is it a value that was shared by one of your ancestors that maybe hasn't served you in your own life? And then how do we unlearn them? How do we cut the cord? How do we send them out to the ocean, let them drift far away and take back our own power and align with our core values so that we have a life more authentic for ourselves, a life with less inner conflict? I don't know. These are just questions I'm throwing out there. Go ahead, Josh.
I just came up with something while you guys were talking.
You weren't being present for us? You were actually in thought about something else?
No, everything you guys just said was beautiful. You just sparked something in me.
That's okay. Go ahead.
To test your alignment. Once you have your list of your core values, go through each one and say to yourself, I am kindness. I am integrity. I am honesty. I am generosity. I am humility. And if any one of those feels a bit weird to say, there might be a clue that there's some misalignment there and that you can focus on that. If you were short and said something crappy to your partner or a friend or a sister or a brother that day, and your core value is I am kindness, well, then maybe that's an area you can focus on. And again, we do this work without judgment. We can't take back time. Awareness is our beautiful, beautiful, beautiful tool that we can use and move forward from this point on. So anyways, that just hit me while you guys were talking, is to say those as I am statements and see if there's any mismatching.
Yeah. Being that. This came up for me this week and why I brought it up in our production meeting. On Monday night, there was a show here at City Winery and a couple of friends played, but one of my friends was playing, and I totally forgot that I told her that I would be there. Last week, we shared text messages, and she said, "Why don't you come?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll be there. Sounds good." Then I have a men's group here in Nashville. Halfway through the men's group, it hit me. Oh my God, I totally forgot that I told Maggie that I would be at that show tonight. And I didn't keep my word to her. I was not consistent with my integrity of keeping my word. Being impeccable with my word. So it was a brain cramp. I just totally forgot that I told her that I would be there. I knew about the show, and so it bothered me. And as soon as my men's group ended, I couldn't leave. I just sent her a text messages and apologized because I was not consistent with my integrity and impeccability of my word. That's how it hit me. Some people probably might not even care, and actually it does not matter how they feel about it. Meaning, when I told a friend, she goes, "Oh, don't worry about it. Maggie's cool. She's not going to worry about it. It's okay. It's okay." That's fine. But the important part was me being consistent with the impeccability of my word to someone else.
So Jeff, I want to bring back what my response to you was when you shared this in a production meeting, which is it gets a little slippery here. We could go down that rabbit hole of then when we realize that I'm going to use these words, we forgot, or shit, I screwed up. In that moment, we can kind of slip into old behaviors around blaming ourselves, beating ourselves up, guilt and shame around something that was, let's call it an honest oversight. Just it slipped your mind because you may have had too many other things on your mind. That there's where you and I kind of see it a little differently. I don't see that as lacking integrity. Yes, you made a commitment to her, but at the same time, you are a man, you are a human being, and we have all had those moments of forgetfulness or brain fog, or it just slipped our minds. And I just don't, is where you and I don't agree on it. I think I don't see it as lacking integrity. I think it's one of those things. And the beautiful thing is that through your awareness, it's more about making an amends and just letting her know, like, this is not something that you are proud of. It's not something that you make a habit of. And I'm sorry that I totally, it's spaced out on it without beating yourself up, without needing to go there in those self-deprecating thoughts or patterns. But I understand what you said, and I've been there. We've all forgotten a commitment. And then it comes down to, here's where I think the integrity piece can come in, Jeff, is how many times do we then make an excuse, or I'll call a little white lie, to cover our butts for having forgot that? That's where the integrity piece comes in for me. But if I'm just honest and I say, you know what, I totally screwed up, got a lot on my mind, not making excuses, but how can I make this up to you? Like,
right.
I apologize. And if you speak from your heart and not from your head, because ego wants to protect you, right? Ego wants to protect me. When I realize that I messed up, and then egos want to say, well, don't tell the truth, just tell a little white lie. Like, oh shit, traffic, or, come up with another reason why you weren't there. That would lack integrity. I don't think what you did lacked integrity. I just think we're human and these things happen. And then how we respond, how we take accountability in that moment provides us with access to how integritous are we.
But also on top of that, Jay, is underneath, along with integrity, comes another core value: caring. Am I a caring person, and do I care about others? So not only was it my integrity, but you know something, I don't know what's going on, where she's thinking or anything like that, but because I care about my friend, I need to just apologize for my brain cramp and not being there. Why? Because I care about my friend. I care about others. So it also includes another core value within that.
How did she respond?
Dude, don't worry about it. It's fine. It's
That was it.
cool. No worries. It's great. But thank you for letting me know. Thank
Boom.
you for
There you go.
being So it was like 3 core values right away: integrity, caring about others, and taking responsibility.
And honesty.
And then being honest about it. Like Jay just said, I could have said, "Oh my God, I got a flat tire on the way," and but those are my 3 core values that I need to live by and be.
So let me ask you this, Jeff. Were you always this way, or was there a time in your life where you created little white lies to cover your tracks?
No, I've pretty much always been this way. In the meeting right before the
Are you being integritous with me?
Yes,
Oh, no.
I am. As Josh was talking about, and we brought it up, before we came on the air. One of the wonderful things about my parents, especially my father, is that he taught me this from the get-go. Be honest. Take responsibility for your actions. Care about others. Come from that place. If you give your word to someone else, keep your word. It's your, so many times things might have come up in my life and I said, yes, so I will be there. And then maybe something fantastic was on the other side of that at the same time. But I said, I always kept my word to where I originally was gonna keep that. Yeah, it's one of the wonderful, wonderful things my parents, especially my father, taught me. My mother was, she was the queen of little white lies, that's for sure. And it was hilarious because when my mother would say, well, just tell him this guy. No, Mom, I might be 10 years old, but my father, because here's the thing. My father modeled it. It didn't just come out of his mouth. It's what he modeled and what I saw him do and be. And that was so important. And that was that's what people saw in him. Wow, your father's an honest, caring man. When he gives you his word, he's always there.
There you go.
And that's what I was modeled. And I'm so grateful for that.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. I want to share just a quick little story. How the first time I was really able to measure my progress in, let's say, up-leveling my core values. Because here's a question that's going to lead into my little story here I want to share is, do we do the right thing when nobody is watching?
What's
How
the right
many
thing?
of us do the right thing when nobody is watching? So this is my story. I was living in North Scottsdale, Arizona, and there are days where I would discreetly, along one particular trail, leave these little rocks of inspiration, rocks that would say they were engraved with words like love and kindness and gratitude and hope and inspire, inspiration. But I would leave them in very discreet places. And it wasn't like I was overwhelming the forest, but at some point, the forest ranger asked to speak with me in private. And I just come off the trail. And she said to me, it was brought to her attention that I may be leaving these love rocks along the trail for others to find or pick up. And she said, I would like to ask you to stop. And I asked her why. And she said, I know your intention is coming from loving kindness and inspiration for others. But if you think about it, if everyone was to do that, the forest would kind of get destroyed by man. And part of the national forest in the U.S. is leave no trace behind. And so I thanked her for bringing that to my attention, and I stopped doing it. However, I found this other trail that is more remote, and I started to spend more time on this other trail in North Scottsdale. And one day I realized I had one of these rocks in my bag, and I pulled it out. And I was being pulled to set it in a discreet place. And as I was leaning down and I was about to set it down, it hit me. I was like, how old am I feeling right now? There was a part of me that that was my way of being a 8-year-old or a 10-year-old to the forest ranger and letting her know, well, as long as you're not seeing me, I'm going to do what I want to do. That was me lacking integrity. And I caught myself. And I said to myself, not here, not now, not today. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to honor what she asked me to honor, even though it's a different trail. It's still in the same forest. And I didn't do it. And less than 5 minutes later, maybe 3 minutes later, I glanced out and I saw this woman on this boulder standing by herself, looking out in the vastness of this valley. And something drew me to her. And I approached her and she turned around and she greeted me. And I said, how are you doing today? And she said to me something like, I'm having a really rough day. And I said to her, if you're open, I'd like to gift you something. And I gifted her the rock. It brought me to tears. And I didn't know how it impacted her. The conversation ended in that moment. She thanked me and I left. I continued on the hike. And about 30 minutes later, I was in a pause, almost in a meditative state. And she hiked by me, heading back towards the trailhead. And she stopped and she said, you have no idea how that gift changed the trajectory of my day right now. Thank you so much. In that moment, I had such gratitude in my heart, not only for the fact that I touched her life because I achieved really what I wanted to achieve, but I caught myself and said that would lack integrity. And I don't want to show up that way anymore in my life. Whether someone is watching me or not, I want to do the right thing today.
And the right thing by who, Jay?
Beautiful question.
Yeah.
Well, if it's a right thing by the National Forest that has a program called Leave No Trace Behind, that was me dishonoring the wilderness. That was me dishonoring, something that man or woman has said is inappropriate. And who would I be if I was to dismiss that? I see so much traces being left behind in the wilderness every single day where people dishonor the land.
Yep.
And that's what I don't want to do in my life anymore. I dishonored enough people, places, and things in my younger years. I don't want to be that man anymore today. So it becomes a choice for me, right? This becomes a choice for all of us when we become more mindful and conscious of how we're showing up. And are we at peace with how we are showing up for ourselves and for others? In that moment, it was less about me discreetly dropping a rock. It was more about me realizing that I had made some massive growth in my own personal journey of coming home to return to love.
Beautiful, brother. This is a beautiful segue, if you don't mind me then, talking about why it's so important that we start to learn these values, brothers and sisters. In the ancient ways, whether you're talking about our original ways here in the land down under, or, maybe over, your way, which you have the American Indians. You have the Celtic, the Druids over on that part of Europe. There's many beautiful ancient cultures. And what Jay's talking about here is simply respect to the land. Now, in our old ways, the values were very much at the center of all of our existence. we were always taught particular stories, which were called dream-in stories, which were very real to us. Now, some people might look at it as our dreaming stories as mythologies. You may even look at them as something like parables, like in the good books. But these stories were really formed around a particular story that was of Father Sky, Bayami, Creator, and also Mother Earth, of them coming together with a symbiotic relationship to make love and give birth to animals. Jay's talking about rocks. We're talking about trees. We're talking about everything that was in existence. Humans hadn't even turned up then. This was when basically Mother Earth had the birth of the rainbow serpent, which came up down from underneath the earth. And this was creating the waterways, the gullies, and etc., and all of that. From this point, what we started to understand is that from these particular creation stories, particularly that one there, it gave us a law, what we call LORE law. This law was made of knowledge, know the ledge, knowledge, not by a law that was made up of rules from a book. We will talk about laws of the land, laws of the universe. So this shaped the very fabric of our values. One of those big values was obviously respect, and respect to all things within your place, all things within your tribe, your clan, all things that were within that place had a spirit or soul. So you had to show that respect. If you didn't show that respect, and you know, I know in certain places here in the land down under, brother, if you were writing on rocks here, you'd be punished for that. And this is how this gets really deep. Because when we start to understand that connection that we're being basically disconnected from you know, nature itself, then we started to really let go of particular values that really based our decisions, our everyday life, how we respected, like I said, each other, the animals and everything that we were in it, to be able to live out a life in a symbiotic relationship with everything. This was the true magic. We only took what we needed to, but we had a set of values that were lessons, that were beliefs, that created our actions on how we lived out our everyday life. Now look in the modern world, how this is flipped around. And that's a very basic description of, you know, a lot of our spirituality in our culture. The modern world's value has been placed on cars, houses, what we do for work, whatever it may be, but its values on that external world. And so we have lost connection to self, and most importantly, Mother Earth. And at the very deep root of what I think Jay is talking about here is one of his core values would have been wrapped around respect for country, or as you guys know, the woods. So that's just a little bit of the ancient ways.
Thank you for sharing that. I mean, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, one thing that's coming up for me in this moment, and this could expand our show for another hour and a half, but I'm going to go there, is two things that come to mind. Well, one, we don't want to go with this is that if we're in a relationship, whether it be an intimate relationship, or if we're in a relationship with friends, family members, and we're consistently arguing or fighting. Some refer to it as healthy debating, but I'll question that. It's another show. But if we are fighting with someone we say we love, a family member, even a spouse, a partner, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, how are we honoring our core values if we're dishonoring somebody else? What are we fighting for? What are we fighting over? Are we fighting over our core values? Or are we fighting over our belief systems? And we haven't even gotten there yet. What is truly the difference between core values and belief systems. But again, coming back to how many couples that book me for a hike and heal couples relationships in the wilderness is staggering right now. I've got 5 different experiences in the wilderness. 8 out of 10 are booking me for couples that are in pain. Where do our core values align with showing up, dishonoring and disrespecting our so-called partner in life? And what are we fighting for? Is that an indication that we are not aligned with our core values? Is it an indication that we're just sleepwalking through life? We're not even aware what our core values are? Because in none of those Google clicks that I see, any of the core values included a debating, or being mean-spirited.
Being right.
Being right. You need to be right.
Yeah. I think we get caught because...
on that one. Go ahead, Josh.
Go ahead, Josh.
I was just going to say, I think we get caught because of the wounded child. It's not that we forgot our values. It's just that protecting that pain and that hurt of being wrong or proven to be, what I protected a huge amount was that I felt stupid. And so if anything even came close to that from the outside world, I was super defensive. And it didn't matter at that point what my values were. I had to protect that, they wouldn't find out that I'm stupid. So therefore I had to prove myself right. And I had to be right and not dumb. And so I think it's being asleep. At least it was for me. What were you going to say, Jeff?
But a lot of those are learned behaviors. To be right. I mean, they're learned behaviors. Fighting, they're all learned behaviors. I mean, the reason why we're doing this show is to raise awareness to core values. To raise awareness and consciousness and asking the question, what are your core values? And do you know what that even means? And to look in the mirror and ask yourself, what do I value? What are my core values if I move in my heart space? What, Jay, I think you're talking about are just learned behaviors that, as Josh said earlier, can be unlearned. If in fact we want to take that inner journey and take responsibility for our behaviors. What I found fascinating, and I didn't want to let this go, was in our production meeting, a part of the reason why this subject came up is Evis was with a bunch of kids during the week, and he asked them, what are your values? And I'm still waiting to hear, like, how did that come about, and what that was all about? Because you said you're with young people even into their 30s, and when you ask them, or whatever you did, what are your values? People didn't know.
Yeah, man. And I always have a process that I do within the workshops. Like I said, I always start with everyone's story. We sit around the circle, we go through each other's stories, and then we map out some of these values. And when I hear that no one understands these values, I'll give them a few step process. And a lot of this, what we've got to understand, coming from last week even, we were talking about the emotion side. Are your emotions in motion? When something isn't aligned to some of these core values within our lives, when some of these emotions that are triggered, like anger, fear, guilt, sadness, and some of these really deep emotions within inside, 9 times out of 10, it's because it's not aligned to some of these core values. So I always ask, step 1, give me a time within your own personal life and possibly career. What was the most, or identify your most happiest time? What were you doing? Who else was with you in that environment? And what anything else contributed to that happiness? I'll go on and ask, what was your proudest moment? And then I'll basically ask, what was your most satisfying? So from those few points, I'll then start to get them to list some of the values that they may consider from some of those moments and experiences within their lives. Generally, you'll get 5 to 10 sort of values if I don't put them up on the whiteboard. From then, I'll then ask them, if someone was to ask them, someone they admire, someone they look up to, what values do you align to within your life? Would you be proud enough to openly express and communicate these values that you've chosen today? So group all of these 10 values together, possibly put them into twos, and then from each of those groups of 2, take one of each of those. You should be left with 5 values, brothers and sisters. If your actions, your goals, your intentions, your happiness, your fulfillment, your contentment, your daily life does not match those goals or those values, I should say, you've got to do an audit, brothers and sisters. And it really can be as simple as that.
You're muted, Jay.
Jay, you're muted.
Yeah. I'm here.
I want to hear.
All right. So Ev, I love what you just shared. And it's interesting because it was something that came up for me that bubbled up, and then I kind of let it go during the show, which is around, we very easily, when we're in let's say in an unhealthy, toxic relationship, we get caught up in, I call inventory lists. We're very, very quick to keep score. We have a scorecard, inventory list. What I'd like to do is really invite all of our viewers and listeners to take some time this weekend, if not tonight even, and really assess what are your top, for you, core values that, whether you have embraced them or what you would like them to be. Because I think, Ev, you said earlier, is that we have the ability to shift and pivot and, create or embrace parts of core values that we may have not embraced before. And I do believe it's something that we can practice embracing. But to practice, we have to be willing to show up. We have to be willing to practice some of the 3 or 4 C's: commitment, consistency, courage, and compassion for yourself. Not with the intention of beating yourself up, but saying, okay, like I want to be a better person. Now, and that sounds like judgment, because it doesn't mean I'm a bad person, but I want to be a better person for me. I want to feel better about myself. Now, it's interesting because I never thought about this till this moment right here, right now. That part of my healing journey early on, when I was a wreck, when my life was out of control, my core values were tanked. I hated myself.
Yep.
What I just realized now is a huge part of my healing journey was when I was able to really look at, who am I? Do I like myself? Do I love myself? Do I hate myself? And the parts of myself that aren't serving me anymore, how do I release them and embrace new core values that give me permission to go to sleep at night? And knowing that when I take my last breath in this lifetime, that I'm at peace with who I've become. That to me is the true essence of how we can adjust or pivot and, become the greatest version of ourselves. To me, that's not about wealth. That's not about career. That's about who we are at our core. How do we show up for ourselves? Are we showing up for others better than we're showing up for ourselves? How many of us think that that's our gateway to happiness? We compromise our own well-being so that we'll be seen by other people. How important is that? Most important, I've learned, is for us to take care of ourselves, fill ourselves up, be consistent with our behavior, be consistent with how we talk to ourselves, be consistent with how we treat ourselves. So I'm going to give you, Jeff Fasano, you got 1 minute to close us out. Can you do that?
Well, I was going to actually say Jay's homework assignment is to write down or find those core values this weekend. Then add one more thing onto that. When you make that list, it could be 10. And then looking at it, it could be 5. And then we could say to ourselves, those are my core values. And as Josh led us earlier through, I am that. Ask yourself, am I being that value?
Beautiful.
Am
So
I
what
being that
I
value?
love that. I love that, Jeff. And what I'd like to invite our viewers to do is, if you take the time to assess, are you in alignment with your core values? And if not, I invite you to create what they are. And as you go through this process over the next couple of days, drop me a note in Messenger, so that we can continue this conversation off the podcast. I'd love to hear what you uncovered in this process of not redefining, but just assessing and coming to terms in alignment, aligning with your soul core values. And then let us know what you find, what comes forward for you, and what are you willing to commit to change. Josh, I want to give you a moment here just to put some closing thoughts on the show.
Before Josh goes, why don't we do that on our community page? On
Great
Facebook?
idea, Jeff. Great idea, man.
Yeah.
Go to our community page on Facebook.
Yep.
And if you haven't joined our community page, go there and talk about Jay's homework assignment.
Love that. Can't wait to see what you guys write.
Yes, please.
And we'll chime in too.
Josh, what do you got?
Man, as we're talking about all of this, I was reminded throughout tonight of the number of years that I didn't show up for myself and stand in my core values, and that I made concessions. And Jay, I mean, like you said, you just hit like on 5 points. One of which that I thought, putting others first was a good virtue in life. And I'm really coming around fast, even recently, into some massive realizations on how, as beautiful as that was, or what I thought it wasn't clean love. It wasn't love for love's sake. I was loving so that I'd be loved in return, and that I would be enough and I would be okay. And so and I don't look back on any of this in judgment either. I just look at how far I've come and how happy that makes me to be able to say where I am today. And I think I'm just in gratitude right now, and in deep appreciation for the journey, and how hurting I was, and the amount and to the degree at which I was willing to compromise my values. And that didn't feel good for a lot of years. And we might not think that white lies take us down or affect us, or we might not think that putting others first is a bad thing. But all those little times that we deny ourselves and that we deny our inner child, and that we don't set our boundaries, and that we let ourselves step into something that we're didn't want to do, and we didn't speak our truth, and we didn't speak our hearts, all of that stuff starts to add up. And I was in a pretty bad place back then, and I didn't know it. And the only reason I can see now how harmful all that stuff was is because I got out and I can look back and go, wow, all of that brought me down so much. And so it's through the lens of change that I'm able to see the power of this work and just be truly, truly grateful and happy to say that I get to be me today, and that I love me, and I love who I was and what I went through, and I love what I've become. So
Beautiful, brother.
I love all you guys, and I love this space that we can have these talks and these discussions, because this is life.
Ev, I know we're over right now, but by the way, Josh, thank you. Thank you for showing up tonight. You're so beautiful.
You guys too.
I got chills right now, because you see, I am you, and you am I. It's so beautiful that we can sit here as four men and break down and share with vulnerability things that millions, if not billions, of men would not have the courage to do, which is to share the truth, even when the truth is something that for many is mortifying, is embarrassing. But you've heard me say this before, Josh, we're only as sick as our secrets. And it's so beautiful to be in your presence for the last couple of years and witnessed and watched and observed and been part of your journey of coming home. You're just an amazing man, and I'm grateful to have you in my life. So thank you for that.
Well, and that coming home is in no small part
No doubt.
to the show and what we do here, and the space that you guys have created for me to heal, for me to be aware, me to see the truth in myself. And I've never had a space with men safe like this where I can go there. And so I mean a deep, heartfelt, and truly genuine appreciation for the three of you. I love you guys. And I mean that with all my heart.
Ev, man.
I got nothing, brother. Eclipse season, Mercury retrograde, full moon on the moon's day here in the land down under, brothers and sisters. You didn't feel those beautiful emotions tonight. Where have you been living?
Yes. I love you guys. Thank you, my beautiful friends that have joined me this evening as an Ev, Josh, and Jeff. You guys are amazing. Thank you for showing up one more time on Real Men Real Talk Live. Viewers, you got a little homework assignment tonight. Start putting together what your top 5 core values are, and share it on the community page in Facebook, Real Men Real Talk Live community page. We love you. Peace and blessings. We'll see you next week on Real Men Real Talk Live.